Randy Shaw.
Welcome.
Randy, thank you for joining us. So here's my first question to you, Randy. You've been in SF for about 40 years now doing this kind of work?
A little over 40, yeah.
Has it gotten easier? Does it really matter if you have a progressive mayor or city council? I know there was an issue recently that we discussed here on this show about one of the progressive members of the city council having a hard time getting a building built by Nordstrom's parking lot.
I would say the big picture, and the big picture I'll start with is that I think there's more misinformation and confusion about the homeless crisis now than there's ever been, unfortunately. Instead of people being more informed and understanding, they're less informed because they don't understand why a problem has continued for over 40 years without improvement. Actually, it's gotten worse. And they look at the money that's spent and they say, well, how come we haven't accomplished more? Would that be a correct assessment of how you think people also feel?
We say that again. I didn't hear you.
That, people are looking at, wait, we've had homelessness for 40 years. We spent billions of dollars. Why is the problem even worse after we spent all this money? And that's sort of the core thing you hear about homelessness.
Yeah.
And the problem, and I've written about it 100 times, said it 100 times, but it just doesn't sink in, is that most money that's spent on homelessness in a budget in California is spent on housed people as rent subsidies. But instead of putting that money in what's called an affordable housing budget, we call it the homeless budget. So people always say, well, wait, they take them in San Francisco, they take the amount of the homeless budget, divide it by the number of unhoused people, and say, well, gee, that adds up to X dollars per person. That's crazy that we can't do it. But they forget that, like, every person that Tenderloin Housing Clinic houses, the 2,000 people we house, are all out of the homeless budget. They could have lived in their place for 20 years, but the money that subsidizes their rent comes out of the homeless budget. So the big picture is that America and the federal government has never provided the money necessary to end homelessness. We were on the cusp of doing so with the Build Back Better plan, but Senator Manchin, the Democrat we needed to do, wouldn't vote for the housing part. So the housing part, the big housing gain was excluded from the bill. So we've never spent the money in the United States to end homelessness. So it's gotten worse.